Alrighty, yo. What is up, everybody? How you guys doing? I didn't expect to do this, but I guess I'm here on for the second time today. Earlier I talked to you guys, I think, about your energies, but I have a special guest on today, Doug. Doug, you go ahead and you introduce yourself, because I don't know how you want to be introduced, so I'll allow you to introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Okay, I am Doug. Doug from Chicago. How about that?
This is Doug from Chicago. He's a very intelligent man. We always have, nice talks. So, Doug was coming by. We were talking about kind of the podcast studio and what I'm trying to do with kind of the new setup. And although I look like trash because my hair isn't cut, it doesn't matter. We're still here. We got a setup now that I don't have to take apart anymore. So it's nice to actually not have to do that. But thank you very much for coming through. I appreciate it very much. This is the TPJ podcast. If you don't know, it's your boy TPJ. Find me on Twitter, Instagram at ReelTPJ. That's REELTPJ. It's a film joke. If you don't get it, you damn dummy. Yes, this is the Perfect Journey podcast. As I told you before, I'm just trying to give a new voice, a little less screaming, a little less yelling, a little less hoops and brewing, and a little more of just trying to, talk and really establish my voice. So it's nice. Thank you, Doug. I appreciate it. You're the second guest that I've had. You're the first in-person guest that I've had on the show. So today's word you picked, go ahead and tell the people which word.
Integrity.
Okay. So what made you pick the word integrity?
I guess it's the word that I talked about the most with my kids when I was raising them.
Okay.
It's, a big thing when you talk about it. Webster has a big fancy explanation of what integrity is.
The definition, according to at least Google, it says integrity means the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness.
Yeah. I always told my kids that it's what you're doing when nobody's looking, or what you're thinking when nobody's listening.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things.
Yeah, I agree. I've always tried to maintain some sort of integrity. And sorry if the audio keeps cutting off. I got to figure that it's either this mixer, which is why I'm glad that I'm getting a chance to do this, because we get a great kind of vocal hearing through this, but I don't necessarily know if it's sounding amazing coming through the program. So I do have to fix that. So it sounds great because we're coming straight through the mixer, but it's going into the computer. But yeah, I've always tried to maintain some sense of integrity, because I grew up around a lot of people that had questionable integrity and used to, really tell me that I was kind of stupid for really having as much integrity as I did. And I remember plenty of days and, and opportunities where I could have got in a car to go do something bad, or kind of got on my bike to go do something bad, or just been in a situation I was just like, I'm gonna leave. And people used to call me soft, but you can call me soft, but I'm alive. I've never been to jail, never been arrested, so that's it pays to have integrity. I've always felt Absolutely. Like that. So I don't know how everyone else feels about it. I mean, what do you think? What do you think are integrity? Like, why do you think it is people struggle really with trying to do the right thing? Because I tell my little brothers all the time, I said, it's very easy to do the wrong thing. It's really easy to make a bunch of wrong decisions, especially after you make one wrong decision. They'll just keep piling up on top of each other. But it's very hard to try to continuously do the right thing. And I've always just tried to preach to them, like, I know you're going to do stupid stuff because you guys are young, but just every day try to be better than you were the day before, and just realize that it's easy to do the wrong thing. It's a lot harder to say, you know what, I'm not going to do that thing that I thought about doing because this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and this is going to happen.
Yeah, it's really hard sometimes when you truly believe in something and you know it's right, and then you go out with your buddies on the golf course and you start talking and you start going down different paths, and the conversation changes in a direction that you don't really think it should be going. That's when it's like, oh boy.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I mean, I'm not a golfer, but even just kind of, I work in entertainment, so all this Me Too stuff is interesting, because I've heard some stories by the water cooler that are, where if you were just saying it openly, like even Donald Trump, the whole grab him by the pussy thing, it's like if you're just saying it in a normal conversation or even privately, it's kind of a little bit of a whoa moment. But then you kind of get in those moments with friends or acquaintances or people that you're around, and you're just like, this is not a conversation I'm really interested in having right now, but we're here and you're going to make me a participant. So I'm going to participate, but I'm not going to give you that joy that you want of me, agreeing with you just because you want to, have this conversation. A lot of people try to do that to me. That's why I don't even like talking basketball with some people, because they really just want to bring up something so that way I can disagree with them and they can scream at me. It's like, this is not what that is. Let's talk about something else. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the things that I do come out on the golf course, and when you're walking down a fairway and you're talking to somebody and the conversation starts going a little bit south, that's when you turn it around and say, hey, wait a minute, we don't need to be talking about that. But integrity is it's big in a lot of different ways too within golf. If you look at all the professional golfers nowadays, there's a lot of things going on that are not holding up with the word integrity very well.
Yeah. Are you religious? If you don't mind.
I am. Okay. I am very much.
I'm not very religious anymore. I kind of shunned religion as a child because I feel like I was a lot more perceptive and aware of things that were going on around me when I was a kid. And I saw a lot of people in church do a lot of evil things in church and outside of church. And I can still remember being 3, 4, 5 years old, and not necessarily everybody's faces, but I remember how the room looked. I remember the color of people's dresses in there. And back then, especially in the early 90s, people used to wear a lot of like gray toned suit jackets and like darker blues and stuff like that when I grew up going to a Catholic church for pretty much like 10 years. So it kind of really spoiled me to religion, and everybody's always like, oh, everything's not the same. But I just kind of, for me personally, I've shied away from it, but I've always tried to still take a lot of those principles with me everywhere I go. I'm just not a church going person.
I agree with you in a way. There's, when you do go to church, that's one form of, expressing your faith and things like that. But you do see a lot of things going on in church where people think they're doing the right things, but really what they're trying to do is bring more of the worship to themselves than to God the way that it should be. So I mean, I do see a lot of that, but I think most people have like the best intentions in mind when they're when they're at church. But I quite honestly, I haven't been going to church on a regular basis, but that has nothing to do with my faith and what I believe in and where I'm going to go with it. So, I mean, my wife and I do a lot of work together. We do a lot of work outside of the house that kind of brings glory to God. Yeah. But we also have our church services together at home. I mean, you can do that just as well as you can go into a public place. Yeah. And there's a lot of things to be said about that.
Yeah, give me one quick second. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Because this thing keeps cutting off. I want to make sure I get this audio. I have an external recorder I use. They'll be okay. They'll still love us. And yes, I'm still recording, by the way. So apologies if you're watching this on the video. But I also want to make sure that you can hear me, because for some reason, every other couple seconds, it seems like the audio is not going in.
In this game, he's the technical wizard.
Yeah, and also, if you're listening to this, I'm troubleshooting all of this as well. So I have to. So part of it is genius, part of it is manic, and part of it is I just don't know what the hell I'm doing right now.
But you look like you do.
I tried to. I definitely tried to.
But that took a lot of integrity to say that.
I guess so. Alrighty. So, but in terms of, like you said, so did you rate, because me and Shayna, we don't really talk about religion that much. We do. Shayna's my girlfriend, by the way, if you don't know. And Doug is her stepdad. We don't talk a ton about religion. We talk a lot about like our ideologies and philosophies and kind of how we want to raise our kids and things of that sort. But it's not like a straight we're not always in a straight talking about religion kind of mode. So, you know, how did you go about tackling those things? And you know, and obviously we're talking about integrity, but you know, I told you that I didn't really like the church because I didn't feel that the integrity was there. How did you kind of tackle that?
I mean, that's a great question, because you certainly can't force your kids to go to church and you know, go to Wednesday night sessions and things like that. But when we did take them there, they got a chance to meet a lot of really good people, a lot of good, you know, good friends that they got to meet there. And you know, it helped them to come along, and it made it easier for them to learn the things that, you know, I would like for them to learn at an early age. But we never forced it down their throat. We always gave them the chance to make their own decision. And you know, I think fortunately most of my kids have made a good decision, so in the right rate. So you know, I think they're doing pretty much the same thing I did too when I was a kid. I made a good decision, and I believed, and as I got older, I kind of faded away from it. I'm not going to lie. You know, I got into a lot of things that kids get into, you know, after high school, you know, in my college days, obviously, you know, get into things that
I've been there too.
We won't go there. No, but it came back around, and you know, I started seeing things. I'm a very scientific kind of a guy.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah,
I
me
like
too.
to think of things. You know,
It's probably why we get along so well.
That's the kind of logic that I use. I'm not a artsy guy, so I like to find proof for things, and that's you know, that's what I've done all along. When I think of faith and when I think of integrity, I try and see it together as, okay, you know, what really happened? What does the Bible say? What does it, you know, how does it relate to me? And you know, does it really mean what it means now, as it was written 2,000 years ago? You know, so I.
Because I mean, it's a lot of stuff that people still practice. That it's like they didn't have cell phones when people were getting stoned and things of that sort. Like we're at a different age of communication, and I think you know that's part. But also, I've talked a lot, or at least in a couple of these episodes, about kind of me thinking that not only integrity, but just kind of maintaining positive energy around you. Is not like monolithic. You know, like I think when I was younger, I used to have such a black and white perspective on everything. And even I talked about it in the last podcast. I was talking to one of my younger buddies who basically came to me and was just like, you know, I'm thinking about going and joining the forces, but you know, people around me kind of are like, I don't know if that's a good idea. And I'm like, well, are you scared of dying? And he's like, no. I'm like, well, then you'll probably be okay. You know, at the worst, you're just not going to be around your family a lot, but for you personally, you know, do what you want to do, because nobody else is going to be able to live your life. And even you don't have to listen to me either. But, you know, if you're going to spend the rest of your 20s feeling like you're going to be miserable here and you're going to lose that integrity, then go do, you know, because he was saying, I worry about being disciplined. And I'm like, you know, when I was 22, or there were people around me that when they were 22, I wish they had, you know, enough knowledge or at least enough self-awareness to just realize that they weren't disciplined enough, and that their lack of discipline was going to lead to them kind of, you know, doing things that they don't deem to be integral, you know what I mean? And really abusing their integrity. So I would just kept telling them, like, hey man, do what you can to maintain your integrity and make sure that your energy around you is good. And if you feel like staying here, you just gonna get caught up in doing the wrong thing, then go do the right thing. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to just stay at home just because it's safe. You know, and I think and for him, I was like, yeah, join the armed forces is a good thing, but if you want to join the armed forces to leverage it to do other things, then now you got 4 to 6 years to plan that, if this is something that you really think is a thing you want to do. So I was like, just make sure you just keep trying to do the right thing, because they'll start to stack up.
So, but you mentioned the right thing.
Yeah.
What is the right thing? To you, the right thing is one thing. To me, the right thing is another thing. To everybody has, but generally speaking, most people agree that they, they agree on what's good and what's bad, or what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
What put that in your mind? What put that in anybody's
religion?
head?
I'm guessing.
Well, I mean, if you don't believe, if you're an atheist,
Yeah.
you still have the idea of good and bad, right?
Yeah, but we're still on a Christian calendar too, though. But we're still on a Christian calendar, though, too, technically, right? Or a pagan calendar, however they want to describe it. So, I mean, we're technically still living under the societal rules of the Bible. So, I feel like inherently we're born with this sense of morality that we have to abide by. Which is also like, even if with like old Scorsese movies, like his big thing was about, he always talks about how like the Catholic Church kind of always put those thoughts in his head. So he would always try to convey that through his character. So even like the hand over the fire thing, and I forgot which movie it was. What's the Mean Streets? I think it was what was the name of his first movie? It was Mean Streets.
I don't remember.
I forgot the name of Scorsese's first movie. But anyways,
I don't remember.
But he talked about how like a lot of the Catholic principles that he grew up with, he put in a lot of his movies. And I just feel like it's just a part of our society. So
that
we just
grow
up with that.
I've always been non-denominational.
Yeah.
So, I kind of just go by, Bible-based, and I read it. I make my determination of what I think it means, and I try and use logic. I try and use my scientific mind to think things through, and I look at historic events, and I look at I try and prove it wrong. There's a lot of investigative reporters that go out and learn about things and use facts to back it up. And a lot of people will try and say, well, that couldn't be true because it conflicts in different places. But you really look at that and you think, well, yeah, but it was written by somebody's perspective. As they were looking at it
40
from this
people's
side.
perspective.
This other thing was written from the perspective of them looking at it from this direction. So it's I try not to mix it all up. I just let it be and really think about what's the point that you're trying to get across here. And getting back to the good and bad.
Yeah, what is it?
What is it in your conscience that really, really forces you to, know that something is good? And so I don't want, if I poke you in the eye, that's bad.
Yeah.
If I shake your hand, that's good. I mean,
yeah, but it's also subjective. Are we wrestling? If you poke me in my eye, we're wrestling. We're entertaining.
There you
know
go.
what I mean?
But
if
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, which is the wild part about that for me for life is like I just used to look at everything as just being so black and white. And now that I'm getting older, everything is just becoming more and more gray and more muddier, and you just get to see things from a very different perspective. So I remember when I first got here and I was struggling, I just kept thinking like, man, being a kid was so easy. I wish I could go back to being a kid. Then you kind of think about it, it's like, well, nah, because I was kind of even the stuff that I've was blinded from or wasn't blinded from was still traumatizing enough. So I couldn't imagine, being a kid and having to compartmentalize with everything. Even my first guest, his name was Dion, and he talked about how he was homeless the entire time that we were in high school together. I had no clue. But my mother was always the parent that would go and buy clothes or give a random student shoes or be like, hey, or she would say, how are your kids in your class? And I would be like, this boy doesn't have any pants. She'd go buy him some pants and be like, give it to him and make sure nobody see, like that kind of stuff. So I was just literally like, man, I wish I would have known that. But we were just talking and he was just like, yeah, I just had to moment to moment just fight to kind of keep going forward. But also, even at my worst time, I just kept telling myself, like, it's not just going to kind of be that way. So even me coming up, trying to maintain my integrity, I was just like, I have to keep going because it's not going to always be this way. And as muddier as things get, as I'm getting older and I get that knowledge, I'm just like, even still, it's not going to always be this way. Because once I moved into the place that I live in now, I had always wanted to get to a place like that. And then, a few months after I'm there, it's like, all right, cool. We're here. Check that box. Now I got to get a house. Now I got to get a house. Now I need this and that and not. So
not bucket list things, but real things.
Not bucket list things, but just real life things. I always wanted to get out of my 1-bedroom apartment. I stayed there for I think about 4 years, and for the last 2 years, I had been through a couple relationships, lived with an ex in that apartment, So it was just like the energies in that place were just spooky. It was almost like her ghost was there. So even when I would just be in the kitchen, I could just feel her coming around the corner, and I'm just like, oh, I gotta get out of this place. I gotta get out of this place. I gotta get a bigger place. I gotta, and then the moment I get here, I'm just like, all right, now I gotta get another bigger place. But I gotta still keep trying to get more while maintaining my integrity, which I will say I feel like I've done a decent job at doing it. I make music, and I have a line in one of my songs where I'm just kind of venting, because sometimes I'll make songs, but sometimes I'll like actually make some stuff where I'm just, just like venting, and I'll just freestyle over a beat and put it in a folder, and I'll never listen to it again. But I just needed to kind of get that off my chest and kind of move from it. But it's a couple freestyles that like I just kind of say some real stuff. I'm like, if somebody heard this, and literally start off a verse, and I was just like, my mama also told me not to do drugs, because I was just talking about like lessons that my mother's was giving me, and the song is about like when I was homeless as a kid, and I was just like, my mother, and just kind of talking about the lessons, and I'm like, yeah, my mother also told me not to do drugs. It is what it is, and it was what it was. But before I moved to LA, I didn't drink. It wouldn't smoke anything, wouldn't do anything, straight laced. And then kind of as I got older, I'm like, oh, weed isn't that bad. Like, I don't have to be a crackhead like everybody else around me just because I smoked the joint. And, so even the idea of integrity for me is kind of shifting and evolving and seeing things. So it's interesting.
Of course, yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. I did see that big change in mine. It's kind of a wave, as my life went on. And hopefully, right now it's more of an even keel.
As you get older, especially because you've helped to raise a lot of children. How do you
7 kids?
Yeah. How do you? I don't know. I guess I don't know. I feel like the reason why I've always never wanted to kind of get married, just because I've never seen any real great examples of marriage. I've seen a few, like far and few in between. But even then, it's kind of, everybody has their secrets or whatever. But even just in terms of trying to like maintain while raising 7 children, like how do you? Is it just something that just kind of comes when you in that situation, or is it something where you feel like a lot of the lessons or what you have been drilling into your head in terms of what you felt you needed to do carried you through? Kind of, being married with 7 kids and raising 7 kids, especially because there's the majority boys, right? 6 boys, right? 6 boys, 1 girl.
6 boys and a girl.
Yeah, exactly.
And you got the girl.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So yeah, 6 boys and a girl. So yeah, and I got the girl. So So
yeah, I'm not gonna lie. You go along and you try not to screw them up. That's the big thing, and you learn as you're going, and you do a lot of things that you learn from your own parents, and you try and see where everything fits together, and how every kid's different, every kid's personality is different, and you just try and treat them all as individuals, and don't treat them all the exact same way that you would another child or something like that. So you got to be flexible, you got to be understanding, you got to know that they're going through things for the first time. You've already been through those things, so you kind of sort of know what they're going to expect, but you can't preach to them. You got to make suggestions to them and let them learn things on their own. That's the key to it. And I think for me, I've seen a lot of parents over the years, especially lately in the last 10, 20 years, who just give their kids everything. And it's just not right, You see these kids in high school driving, they're 16 years old, they're driving around a brand new Camaro,
brand new Porsche.
Come on,
I wish.
Yeah, how are you giving that kid?
I had a Saturn SL2 with a hole in the 1995 Saturn SL2 with a hole in the roof that I didn't get until I got jumped when I was 19, and my mother was like, "You need to get a car because you are a film student, and I don't want to get you to get murdered for having a computer on you." But literally, these kids driving around in Benzes, like, come on, man, get them a little Pinto, make them work for that Benz.
I'm not saying I didn't give my kids anything. I gave them a lot.
Yeah, I can believe it. I've never heard any negative stories about you. Seriously. I've always heard, even I talked to her about it, I was like, I've never heard you say anything negative about
I think the most important things to me were, getting the kids to baseball practice and football practice and all the years that I coached baseball 17 years, and I coached football for 5 years. Okay. And when you're in those situations, when you're you've got the kids' minds, and you know they're looking to you as something, you know, somebody that hopefully is going to teach them something. It's not just about the sport. I mean, a lot of it is, but you're going to teach them plays and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of things that you're teaching them about integrity.
Okay.
You know, how to act. You know, you come out in this football field and you get a chance to hit anybody you want as hard as you want.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah.
But when you go to school, you know,
leave it there. Leave it on the football
leave
field.
it on the field. Yeah, and treat other people the way you would want to be treated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
A lot of good things.
But I also see, because this is the other thing. Like you know, obviously, me and Shane haven't been together for a jillion years, even though it feels like it has, just because we kind of literally, once the day we got together, we were literally pretty much inseparable. Kind of after we went on our second date. Like, she liked me a little bit. We were cool after the first one. We stayed just kind of being friends. And then once we kind of went out on, like, our second date, we pretty much been inseparable since. So I'm still getting it's still a lot of context and a lot of family stories that I'm kind of being let in on. So I'm coming into everything with, like, a totally fresh and objective perspective versus everybody else is, like, so subjective and they have their feelings about things and stuff. So I'm usually just with her, just, like, trying to be the mediator, or just being like, look, baby, like, just, you know, this isn't whatever, like, because she's like, yeah, but you don't know how they are. I'm like, yeah, but that's part of the good thing, that I don't know how everybody is, because I can just see it for what it is. So if someone's tripping out on her, I'm like, yeah, they're kind of tripping out on you. But if she's doing wrong, I'll be like, Shayna, nah, you probably didn't do that right. You might need to do something different on that. And she'll listen. So it's a lot of stuff that
it's good, you know, be honest with
that's why I try. That's why I'm always asking you questions about stuff like that, because I literally don't know, other than kind of the not the few stories, obviously, because there are millions of them that, you know, I've been told.
You know, one of the things that my wife and I talk about it all the time. It's, for some reason, when you meet that one person and you just know it, you just know it's going to be good. Yeah. You know, Shada called one time. She goes, I got him. I got the one. Yeah,
she told me, she said that, and I laughed at it. Yeah. It used to, honestly, the way she used to talk to me, it scared me. I'm like, yo, what is going on? Like, is she crazy? Like,
because obviously she's very,
obviously she's very, 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 very beautiful. If you've ever seen my girlfriend, you know she's extremely beautiful. Beautiful, but also she's as beautiful on the outside, literally, as she is on the inside. Very, very sweet, very, very kind.
Absolutely.
And from the day I met her, she was just super.
She got that from her mama.
Yeah, good. That's good. She was just super nice to me. So I was like, okay, you're kind of nice. And then when we kind of got together, she was like, yeah, you're going to be my husband. I'm just like, relax. We've been together for like 3 months. Like, I know we a little inseparable. She's like, no, I just know you're going to be my husband.
She said he's the one.
You're going to be my husband.
Be the one.
Okay. Uh-oh. See, here comes that stepdad pressure. I'm getting that pressure. Sweating. Sweating.
Put your integrity on, man.
I have to now. I definitely have to now with everything that's coming. I definitely gotta put my integrity hat on. But that's also why I told her that I'm not a heavy person on people's advice, because every time people give me advice, it's usually bad advice that they try to wrap up in a nice package. So even when I'll
never give you advice, I'll give you some suggestions.
Yes, exactly. See, I like that. But see, I don't give advice to people either. I tell them, like, look, I'm gonna tell you my opinion on it. And
this is what happened to me when I did that. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell them my opinion on it, but I'm never gonna tell somebody this is the wrong way, this is the right thing, this is what you should do. I'm gonna say this is what I think, but I could be completely wrong. And if I am, take my opinion, ball it up, and Kobe Bryant that in the trash. But if you feel like it's valuable, take it and use it, you know. But so
sounds to me like good solid logic. I'm good with that.
Good solid logic, yeah. But also, for me, I think a lot of people really still rock with me because they look at what I've done and they say, yo, I honestly, I've done my best and done my damnedest since I left Chicago to just try to make sure not only that I don't have to go back to those circumstances, but also that I don't make it the wrong way, because I know that there are a lot of people out here that do make it the wrong way, and I see it. But especially with me being black and being in the workplace, I've always had to maintain a higher level of integrity, because I watch white guys get away with stuff with unspeakable acts that I could like say on many millions of podcasts that got hundreds of stories, hundreds of water cooler stories. And I've seen a lot of people that, I'm not just gonna say black, that are minorities, that that get excommunicated from one part of a group and then they are gone, or just are gone for a fraction of the infraction. You know what I mean? And so I've always had to kind of just like walk on water, and not like a literal sense like I'm Jesus, but literally when you black in entertainment, you don't really know where you stand unless you own something. So that's why like I've always put up on like an onus on owning something, because I know at least with Hoops and Brews, with this studio, with all the stuff, if I build it, I make it, I work on it, there's nobody that can come through these walls and be like, oh, you got to change this to make this thing, and then I got to compromise my integrity. I've always been like, if I own it, I know how it's supposed to go, and I know how it's going to run because I own it, versus me working for another man and them owning my paycheck, which they own your paycheck, they own your happiness, because they can control when and when you don't get fed. And, you know, that's a big thing for me, where I don't want anyone to control when or when I get fed. So it's unfortunate that, like, you know, the past couple of years I've been trying to figure myself as I kind of go from being a young man to kind of like really being like fully in adult manhood, and a young entertainer and executive to like really being like the guy that now I'm not the 22-year-old that's looking at everybody like, how do you do this? Now I'm the guy that the 20-year-olds and the 22-year-olds are coming to and asking how to do it. So I have to kind of still tell them, you know, to keep their head straight, and things are going to be tough, but also still know that, you know, it's still a struggle for me trying to figure it out. So, you know, all I can do is just, you know, kind of give you what I can and keep trying to build my own thing, so that way I don't have to depend on anybody else to kind of tell me, you know, how I should feel, because I've seen a lot of evil, but I just think that's just a community thing, which is also kind of one of those reasons why I'm not big on going to church, because I just think communities breed evil. But like, you know, obviously we're all communal people, but like small communities just breed evil. Yeah, they really do to me.
Yeah,
they really do.
I've seen that with the kids too. I've seen that with
turning
with
full
Shane,
Game of Thrones, probably.
Yeah. You know, they were, you know, black kids growing up in a predominantly white neighborhood, going to high school with, you know, for the first time in an environment that they weren't really sure of, and they went in there and came home with a lot of stories that we, you know,
I can
wife
imagine.
and I would just kind of take them aside and say, look, you know, there's a lot of ignorant people out there. You just gotta sometimes ignore them. Sometimes you got to stand up to them and face them and say, look, man, you're being ignorant. You can't do that. You know, and you know, they've learned a lot of lessons, good and bad. You know, from the situations that
I've heard about that.
We sort of put them in. You know,
But honestly, it's even me, you know, I got a lot of black friends that literally that I grew up with on the South Side that didn't leave the South Side until they were adults. So I got a lot of friends. They're like, I saw like 5 white people in my life before I turned 18 and started going downtown more, because I was old enough to kind of venture off. But me, I was always, my mother was a teacher and my aunt lived up north. So I could always go up north with my aunt to stay with my aunt for a day or two. She lived by the zoo. So I would always see just different walks of life, different people. And then when I went to actual elementary school, my mother put me in a magnet school. So they celebrated every different culture and all the other stuff like that. So it was still stuff that was going on. But she really did me a leg up by putting me in an environment with a bunch of white people and a bunch of Asians and Irish people and all different kind of German people, Polish people. I was around all different types of walks, creeds, colors, religions, everything. And the cool part about that school was that they tried to celebrate everybody's culture for cultural holidays. So even understanding what Chinese New Year and stuff like that was, you know, rather than kind of me growing up and being ignorant to Chinese culture, I actually grew up and I knew a little bit, at least the basics, to where if I saw an Asian person or a Chinese person or a Korean person, Japanese person, I'm not just calling them all the same type of person. And it were little things like that where, although for me kind of seeing it,
don't compartmentalize them, because they're individuals and they all come from different places, you know, and you know, even their culture within their their realm is a little bit different somebody next to them.
Exactly, yeah. And my cousins used to, my cousins that still lived in the hood used to be like mad at me, and like because I didn't want to, because I was doing all these different things, and like, and I had different perspectives. So as I got older, I was just like, okay, I'm clearly doing something right, because all the people that I see doing wrong are upset by this, and I'm not doing anything wrong. So that means that I'm doing something right. And although I did have to deal with some racism and stuff like that, and people thinking that I was stupid and stuff like that, I never really paid attention to it, because I was just interested in just learning stuff. I was the kid that just would ask a million questions because I just wanted to learn stuff. I remember when I was 18, randomly, my godmother loves to bring the story up to me about me asking our old CEO. I was just like, how are hay bales made? I could have Googled it, but he was just like this infinite wealth of knowledge, so I could ask him about anything and he would literally know it. And I would go and Google it sometimes afterwards to make sure he was right, and he would always be right. And he explained it to me, and my godmother always laughs at me. She's like, yeah, you just used to ask a million questions. I remember you asking about the hay bales. Like, who asked how are hay bales made? How did you even think of that? And I was thinking about some cows, and I was like, oh, what are they eating? And I'm thinking about horses. I'm like, oh, well, how did they get the hay? And so that's just always been in my mind. So it might have been a disadvantage, or it might have sucked for them, but I think they're all better people for it. I think I think Shayna can go into any room and everybody loves Shayna because she knows how to talk to everybody. She's gives everybody confidence. When she walks in a room, people don't just smile because she's beautiful. They smile because she's receptive, she's open, and when you meet her, you feel like you've known her your whole life after kind of a couple of moments.
Sounds like you're talking about my wife.
Yeah, for real. Well, hey,
Where'd she get that from?
Where'd she get that integrity from? But all right, I guess the family's here. I smell some food. But this was a nice conversation. 36 minutes long. Did it feel 36 minutes long?
No, not at all.
Any final words on integrity? Any final words of advice for anybody listening to this?
Be the one.
Okay. Listen to Doug. Be the one, too. But anyways, this has been a TPJ podcast. Shout out to Doug for coming through. I appreciate it. And thank you for dealing with me as we deal with these audio issues. But, we will get through them. This has been the Perfect Journey podcast. It's your boy TPJ. I appreciate you all for tuning in. We're small now, but just like Hoops and Brews are small, we're going to keep going, and we're going to keep bringing people in here. We're going to keep having conversations. We're going to keep having conversations about life. We're going to keep having conversations about love, integrity, accountability, all of this kind of stuff, because you can tell a million stories with just one word, and you can easily see how this will grow. So thank you again, Doug, for coming through. I really, really appreciate that. And shout out to everyone out there. This has been the Perfect Journey podcast with your boy TPJ.
Thank you, TPJ.
All righty.